Not a day goes by without new imagined victories.
Kupiansk has been liberated. Thorough checks and the clearing of city blocks are currently underway in this city.
Not a day goes by without real losses.
The total destruction of nearly an entire company is not just a lucky episode, but a clear indication of a systemic failure in the Russian offensive.
At the same time, Russian propaganda tirelessly continues to capture new cities on paper, systematically deceiving both the top military leadership and Putin himself, which is why even Z communities are now mocking the bunker dweller.
The official statement regarding Kupiansk is actually even more completely absurd than the previous one about Pravoberezhny. I mean Kupiansk.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers work to actively debunk these falsehoods and myths, making the Russian leadership's lies look completely and utterly absurd.
Today is the 30th of January. The 30th of January. Behind me is Kupiansk.
We will tell you exactly what is unfolding on the front today, where Russian propaganda has made a significant miscalculation, and why neither Kremlin patriots nor the West, whom this whole spectacle was intended for, believe their lies anymore. Who needs these fake victories, and where are they leading Russia? All this coming up right now in this new episode of Arsenal. The main failure of the Russians since the beginning of this year has undoubtedly been the settlement called Kupiansk. According to Gerasimov's reports, it has supposedly been liberated for several months now and is under Russian control. In reality, however, things are completely different. This is the work of the 151st Separate Reconnaissance Battalion on the outskirts of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region. Ukrainian defense forces successfully captured a small assault group of occupiers.
Come out quickly. Now hurry up and climb inside the car. Get in right now. On the floor, on the floor. All right, move quickly. Faster.
But apparently the shame in Kupiansk wasn't enough for the Russians, and they decided to continue. According to a brand new detailed report from that same Gerasimov, at the end of January, Russia achieved another resounding military victory and successfully captured Kupiansk-Uzlovoy.
Positioned along the eastern bank of the Oskil River, specialized units from the 1st Tank Army are continuing their mission to systematically destroy the remaining encircled enemy formations in the area. Kupiansk-Uzlovoy has been liberated. The inspection and clearing of the city blocks in this town are currently well underway. Combat operations are ongoing in the settlements of Kovsharovka and Glushkov.
However, here, as they say, the Russian command clearly shot itself in the foot. On none of the available maps, not even in the Russian General Staff, were the occupiers' positions anywhere near Kupiansk-Uzlovoy.
Today is the 30th of January. The 30th of January. Behind me is Kupiansk-Uzlovoy. There it is. And what I truly like about the Russian army, to somehow reflect on the leadership of Mr. Gerasimov, is that today a specific group was already sent here with the flags of the 153rd Tank Regiment. Their primary task is to take Kupiansk-Uzlovoy.
A video of a Ukrainian soldier calmly walking around the center of the settlement without a helmet has literally blown up Russian Z channels. They finally realized that not only are they being lied to, but that dozens of kilometers are being claimed for themselves where the Russian army has never even been.
The claim about Kupiansk-Uzlovoy is actually even more absurd than the previous statement about the right bank area, specifically Kupiansk on the Oskil River. Because if, in the case of right bank Kupiansk, there really were actual incursions by Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups, and there really were quite many of them, and they really did manage to establish themselves there, and they really did have specific zones of tactical control, then this more or less corresponded to a certain level of reality. Yes, they were definitely present there. But as for Kupiansk-Uzlovoy, that's entirely unfounded nonsense, because Russian units along the line of contact are currently located at a variety of different distances to the north, east, and south of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy. But on average, this distance is more than 8.5 kilometers and up to 12 kilometers away from the line of contact. In other words, Russian troops haven't even reached the outskirts of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy.
However, there was no reaction to the mutiny on Runet. And what's especially telling is that there was no reaction in the Kremlin either. So Putin accepted the report, resigned himself to it, and is waiting for new victories. At the same time, the Z Patriots are explaining what this actually means in practice. So when the remaining occupiers today request artillery support or evacuation, these requests are simply ignored. After all, the command can't officially order operations in areas that, according to their reports, have long been under their control.
The fact that the city of Kupiansk is not under the control of Russian forces, neither the right bank area of Kupiansk nor the left bank Kupiansk-Uzlovoy district is being clearly stated, not only by Ukrainian officials, OSINT analysts, monitoring groups, and Western analysts, but even by Russian war correspondents, the so-called ZD war correspondents, and the broader ZD community as well. But the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation seems to have chosen the strategy of, if you're going to disgrace yourself, then disgrace yourself to the end.
At the same time, some kind of confirmation of control is still needed. Hence the new tactic, to send out sabotage and reconnaissance groups en masse, whose task is not to hold territory, but simply to take photos in yet another settlement. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces are acting differently. The operation to clear Kupiansk and its surroundings became the most successful since the Battle of Kursk. The occupiers were completely unable to determine the true objective of the Ukrainian armed forces until it was far too late. The Ukrainian military did not have the advantage of superior numbers, so they carefully refined the infiltration tactics that the enemy had previously used. The assault forces were divided into small groups of 8 infantrymen each, then moved in different directions to confuse the occupiers' trail. But the Russians, who missed the advance at the top, of course, do not report this.
This is fundamentally and essentially a strategy of parallel reality, where some kind of long-awaited victory is announced that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with reality, and its mythology is maintained up to a certain point in the hope that yes, Kupiansk will be captured at some point in the distant future, and then, only then, will Gerasimov, Kuzovlev, and Belousov finally be able to breathe a deep collective sigh of relief. Oh, alas, we have finally done it.
A similar situation is unfolding today in the Pokrovsk direction. Officially, according to Gerasimov, the city has been completely captured today. In reality, however, the Ukrainian armed forces are holding parts of the settlement, which is why Russia is semi-officially continuing to send assault units there.
And here's our buddy, the Mangal. The tank did not catch fire. I would not ever wish this kind of thing on any other person. Look at how much equipment has burned. Pokrovsk fortune. Either to the grave or to the trench.
And as our soldiers show, it's more likely to the grave. So on the first day of February, the Ukrainian armed forces carried out a unique operation near Pokrovsk, destroying a column and wiping out 4 Russian platoons at once. Several crews of the Spartan UAVs, the Birds of Magyar, and supporting units all worked together at once. It became known that the occupiers threw about 90 assault troops into this attack. Under the thick blanket of fog, the enemy tried to advance using cars, motorcycles, and ATVs, but none of them made it to their destination. In particular, Ukrainian armed forces units eliminated 80 enemy assault troops, wounded 2, and captured 2 more. They also destroyed 10 ATVs, 4 motorcycles, and 6 enemy vehicles.
Wiping out practically an entire company is not just a successful episode, but a sign of a systemic failure in the Russian offensive. A company of 100 people is the minimum self-sufficient tactical unit, capable of advancing, holding ground, and securing a position, provided there is command, communication, and support. So, when out of 90 assault troops, 80 are killed in a remarkably short period of time, literally within a day, essentially during one single specific military operation. This means the unit is entirely wiped out and decimated as a combat entity. Such a company ceases to exist not only physically but also organizationally. There are no commanders, no signalers, no core around which the unit could be reformed.
And this is just a day after the previous failure near Pokrovsk. At that time, the assault troops were also destroyed. Analysts believe that Putin is so obsessed with the Donetsk region that assaults here will continue until the Russian group is completely exhausted. The Ukrainian command understands this as well, which is why a literal conveyor belt for destroying the enemy has been set up in this direction. According to some estimates, losses here have already reached 30-1, naturally in favor of the Ukrainian armed forces.
There's no need to guess where the enemy will come from here. Any movement out of the tree line, any equipment approaching, any gathering of people in the vicinity or in the city itself is instantly spotted. Drones see everything, in fog, in snow, in ruined buildings. Cover doesn't work. Speed doesn't save you. Heavy armor provides absolutely no advantage. That's exactly why the relentless attacks launched by the aggressor look the same here. An attempt to speed up, a partial advance, suffering immediate and heavy losses, the unit falls apart, and then a final cleanup operation from high above.
This tactic, although tried and tested in Russia, has grown quite tiresome for those in the Kremlin who understand what's going on, which is why many experts agree that the Russian command is facing major changes soon.
Gerasimov is also, currently on the edge. As of today, General Andrei Mordvichov is being actively prepared to replace Gerasimov. And lately he has been appearing more and more frequently within Putin's closest inner circle. And sometimes even in situations where Putin should be accompanied by the chief of the general staff, it's Mordvichov who is there. Mordvichov is being predicted to take Gerasimov's place, quite likely. And it can be said that such a replacement will take place, it's quite possible, even as soon as 2026.
However, will this bring any results? Those who know anything about military affairs are firmly convinced that it won't. For example, Igor Strelkov-Gherkin, who for many years, although he criticized the Russian command, still offered potential solutions, wrote in his latest post that Russia will not see victory. He also added that the Russian leadership faces the grim fate of Milosevic, a trial in The Hague and a long time in prison. Did you like this video? Then be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our Arsenal channel. The link is in the description below the video.
The strategically important city of Kupiansk is gradually being liberated from Russian occupiers. Amid intense fighting, Ukrainian defenders are advancing along the entire front line in the Kharkiv region and have already raised the national flag of Ukraine over the city council building. This became a powerful signal that the city, which had long been under Russian control, is returning to Ukrainian governance. And now, more information in our report. My name is Yevhen Sirov. This is the Glavred channel. Subscribe and give us a like. Let's get started. According to reports from Ukrainian military and local sources, units of the armed forces of Ukraine are conducting operations to liberate and clear Kupiansk and the surrounding areas of Russian troops and sabotage groups. They are advancing in designated sectors, pushing back the enemy and establishing control over key infrastructure facilities. It is reported that several important administrative buildings and strategic points are already under the control of Ukrainian units. The raising of the Ukrainian flag over the city council building was not only a symbolic gesture, but also a practical confirmation of the restoration of control over parts of the city. Local residents who had remained within the territory under prolonged pressure from the occupying authorities began to come out onto the streets, greeting the soldiers and chanting national slogans. These scenes sparked a wide response on social media and in the media. Words of support for Ukraine are being heard from different parts of the country and even from around the world. There is also information that Ukrainian forces are organizing the evacuation of civilians from areas where active fighting is taking place, and humanitarian corridors are already open for those who wish to safely leave the combat zone. At the same time, the enemy is suffering from a shortage of ammunition and demoralization in certain units, which is accelerating the process of liberation. Experts from military analytical centers assess these events as part of a serious strategic initiative by the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kharkiv direction, which is seen as a significant weakening of Russian defensive lines and the restoration of full control over territories that were temporarily occupied. According to them, if the pace of liberation continues, it will further impact the morale of Russian troops and create favorable conditions for Ukrainian forces to advance to new positions. It is important to remember that the situation at the front remains dynamic and dangerous, and Ukrainian units continue to carry out complex combat missions under constant shelling. At the same time, every Ukrainian flag raised and liberated over a city is not only a symbol of restored sovereignty, but also a sign that Ukraine is capable of reclaiming its territories, step by step regaining control over its land. This is an important and inspiring news of the day, demonstrating how, thanks to the determination and professionalism of Ukrainian soldiers, real changes are taking place on the battlefield. We will report all the details, including official comments from the General Staff and the expected next steps, as soon as new information becomes available.